Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Brother Cameron. It's a pleasure.
And so just to go through your resume a little bit, although certainly you can, add anything you want or update it, right? You're discussed as, one of the governance members on the Arcana Veritas website. So just to go through it, you are a past master of Lodge of Peace 908 and a member of the Royal Ark Mariner at Virtuous 679. You have a diploma of distinguished service membership from the Grand Lodge of Scotland. You hold an honorary rank as the Grand Senior Deacon, and you also serve as the Grand Lodge of Scotland Grand Representative for the Grand Lodge of Lithuania. You chaired the DGL Education Committee in the District Lodge of Lebanon and played a pivotal role in crafting the new corporate identity and logo for the Grand Lodge of Ancient Fin Accepted Masons of Scotland. You are also the initiator and co-founder of Magnus Geometris, the Masonic Research Society, serving as administrator for the Arcana Veritas Distinction Awards. So quite the distinguished career. Did I miss anything, or is that pretty close?
Well, I mean, that will cover everything, I think, for now.
For now, I mean, congratulations on all of your accomplishments.
Thank you.
Right, you've contributed a great deal to Freemasonry and to the craft, and we're here to talk about one of the ways that you're currently contributing to the craft, again as a vice chair on the board of trustees for the Arcana Veritas Distinction Awards. I think instead of myself explaining what they are, if you could take a couple moments, explain what I'm going to shorten it now and just call it the AVDA. What the AVDA or AVDAs, the awards, what they are, um, and kind of what your role is as it relates to them being a vice chair of the board of trustees. What is it you do? What are they, and what do you do in relation to them?
Well, basically, I'll have to go back to Magnus Geometra. Magnus Geometra, what the concept of having a certain Masonic research society and to be able to spread it on a global level. The idea behind Magnus Geometra is to try to have a certain understanding of what is it that we do exactly in our lodges and how we can really steer the interest of the brethren who joined Freemasonry and try to give them some direction or some meaning for their membership. That was the main idea behind Magnus Geometra. And throughout the years, Magnus Geometra has been, doing podcasts, doing interviews with grandmasters around the world, trying to pick the mind of Masonic thinkers, authors, in all discipline within, of course, our Freemasonry and our craft. And even though going beyond that, going to with the trying to attract some scholars who are not particularly related to Freemasonry, but that can contribute in their knowledge to what we are trying to achieve. So from Magnus Geometra came the idea of having this Arcana Veritas Distinction Awards, which is basically a Magnus Geometra initiatives. And we have been extremely lucky and grateful that the Grand Lodge of Scotland has adopted all these initiatives from Magnus Geometra until the initiation, the launch of Arcana Veritas Distinction Award. So the program was, I have to say that this is administered today under the Information and Communication Commission under the Grand Lodge of Scotland. And the program, as it is today, was officially announced at Grand Lodge in Edinburgh on the November 30, 2023. today we have been, I mean, in 2025, this is our second edition. We've had the first one in 2024. So that's basically the main idea behind Arcana Veritas. The concept of it is to really to recognize and celebrate outstanding contributions to Masonic literature, and really to encourage researcher uh, uh, to deepen their understanding of Masonic history, symbolism, ritual, and practice, and practice as a whole. So
I want to touch on that a little bit more, but I want to go back to something you said during your answer, and I want to expound on that a little bit because I think it's really important, right? You mentioned, and this goes to not so much your work with Arcana, but your work with Geometra, where you said, right, you obviously you're interviewing, or you will interview grandmasters, and you interview scholars within Freemasonry to talk about kind of what it is we do in our lodges. But then I think you said something important that I think sometimes gets overlooked within Freemasonry. You also mentioned you'll talk to people who may not, themselves be Freemasons, or may not themselves um, be directly connected to the craft, but will have knowledge or information or perspectives that can be a benefit to Freemasonry, or that can impact Freemasonry, or knowledge of Freemasonry, right? How important was it for you? And this will go into even the paper that I provided to Arcana, and and kind of the city of outsider perspectives. But how important was it for you and for Geometra to try to gather and speak with people, or gather perspectives on or about Freemasonry from outside of the craft that you think could be a benefit to Freemasons to help deepen our understanding of Freemasonry?
uh, you see, when you are trying to acquire knowledge, you need to see where it is and go after it. So we cannot just be concerned with our own craft, but we need to also try to understand some, specifically, for instance, in the history section, where you have a historian who are well versed in what we are trying to do. They understand really history more than most of us. So this part, for instance, is extremely important for us to try to see, for instance, if we are talking about a certain lodge, what was the historical context during the initiation of this lodge, how it has evolved throughout the years, etc., etc. We have many historians who have helped us a lot in this area to help us understand some historical background of our lodges and how they came to be. And we try also to understand. Uh, we try we are on a quest to try to really find the source of our craft, which is really a very difficult task. And in this also you will need to have people from outside the craft to join and to give us their knowledge and their understanding of certain aspects of how Freemasonry came about in Scotland. Uh, was it the reminiscence of the Knights Templar, as I say, or the Druids from France? Was it a combination? Was it really only the Gilder, I mean, the stonemasons guild coming from this source? So we try to gather all information that we have to try to find, if we could find um, some new lights into the history of Freemasonry. So this is from one side. From another perspective, you can go into psychologists, people who can understand really how our consciousness evolved, because Freemasonry is all about that. It's all about how you can elevate yourself, how to become a better human being. So here also we welcome uh, psychologists, people who have done research in this field, so we can have a better understanding of how we are evolved emotionally, how we are evolved on a psychological level, and all of that. So you see, uh, we try to really have an open mind and try to attract as many scholars, as many thinkers within the craft, within the area that we are interested in. And this is what Magnus Geometra is all about. And this is what the Grand Lodge of Scotland is trying to do.
And what is the response from that you would say, certainly from Geometra, the response that you get when you are trying to gather information from sources outside of the craft? So, for example, if you were to contact, let's say, a psychologist or um, some type of researcher on the area of, let's say, human consciousness, um, right? Because you think that their research may have value for Freemasonry or for Freemasons. I'm just curious, what is your response like? Do they, generally speaking, do they find it interesting and want to talk, or do they consider sometimes how their research may affect things like Freemasonry or civic organizations in general? Because I know, just for me in this podcast, I've spoken with people whose research I think has value to Freemasonry, and they'll tell me when they were doing the research, or up until I contacted them, they never thought about the application of their research into fields like Freemasonry or civic organizations in general. So I'm curious what the response is like when you contact people outside of the craft. Especially, it's one thing to talk to a historian who, let's say, studies the history of, let's say, stonemasonry or stone guilds. They may see that connection. But let's say you're talking to a psychologist, psychiatrist, somebody, in a field like that. What's the response been like? And do you find it maybe opens up their eyes to some of the areas where their research can be impactful outside of where they maybe first thought?
Well, we've had a different type of response, but most of the response that we've had is very encouraging. People are very interested in what we do, as we are interested in what they are doing. So I think it's a matter of how you do the approach. That matters a lot. What kind of cooperation you are looking for. That also it's a big thing when you approach people who are not very familiar, or sometimes we get people who are hostile for the craft, and it's their right. So we won't push them through this. But most of the people, most of the scholars that we found have welcomed the idea of collaboration, of sharing the research, and they were also curious about what we do, because we have inherited this idea of being a mysterious and very dark organization, which is totally untrue and totally off. I mean, we're all this conspiracy theory that we made, that they made, that are related to Freemasonry, which is total nonsense. But basically, when they talk to us, they see really that they are really talking to serious people, people who understand what they are doing, and they have a certain aim. And we're very far from all this nonsense that the media likes to highlight whenever they talk about Freemasonry.
So going back to kind of the main point of this interview or this podcast, the Arcana Veritas Distinction Awards, I was honored to be, and even I knew, but I didn't really think about till this discussion. Right, I'm part of basically I'm a finalist in the second ever ceremony. Right, if started 2023, or at least was adopted in 2023, with the first ceremony taking place in 2024. So to be basically one of the in the second group, one of the finalists, is indeed an honor. I'm curious though, going back 1 year, what was that first year like? Even not so much the award ceremony itself, but the year leading up to the award ceremony. What was the response that you got when you put out the call for papers or books or works? What was the response like from the brethren? What was the response like internationally, nationally? Like, how was that first year? Because whenever you're trying something new, and I think Freemasons, we're trying to um, maybe push against this a little bit, but we do. I do think with a lot of Freemasons, anything new, it can be a challenge to kind of get a little bit to gain some traction at the start. So, what was that first year like? I'm just curious what the response was with the awards when you put out the call for papers. Um, just how did that first year go?
Well, the first year was pretty challenging. As you said, when you come up with the new idea, everybody is questioning it. Will it work? Will it not work? What will happen to it? Now, the great push that we had is by the Grand Lodge of Scotland supporting this idea and adopting it. So that was really something that put us on the map. Uh,
Why
the
would you say? So why did the Grand Lodge support it? I mean, I'm happy they did, obviously, especially since I'm honored to be a finalist. But kind of when I'm not sure if you approached them first or they approached you first, but when the discussions were taking place, what were the reasons that the Grand Lodge of Scotland chose to support the Distinction Awards and create basically this program in 2023? Or not create it per se, but I guess yeah, you could say create it from your work. Like, what was the reason for it?
well, I think Grand Lodge was at the time looking to elaborate more on the research and I mean to have a certain Masonic society that can help with developing the craft and assisting this part of our craft, And it just happened that we came at the right time, with the right idea. And since we have a great relationship with Grand Lodge, uh, and there is this trust factor that was built throughout the years. So I think it was really the this idea came very easily, and it was easily adopted by Grand Lodge and supported with full force. Now, the first when we launched the first chapter in 2024, uh, we did our own, this social media thing and communicating with all the lodges and all the Grand Lodges in amity with the Grand Lodge of Scotland. And we have been very much successful and lucky to have great interest right from the start. So we received a lot of books, we received a lot of entries, a lot of submission, as with this, the second chapter in 2025 this year. And, we were trying to see if this could be a biannual event or an annual event. And then we took the decision that let's go for an annual event. And for 2025, we also had a lot of positive response in this. So we're very glad to have this.
And are you or is Arcana getting submissions from around the world? Because you mentioned right sending the information to every Grand Lodge with which there's amity. So are you getting responses from around the world? Um, and would you say have you noticed maybe some areas or some parts of the world sending in more submissions? Just what's the response been like on a global basis in terms of what you've been seeing and what the responses have been like?
Well, I have to say that at the Arcana Veritas Awards, it is open for Mason and non-Mason alike. So it's not just purely Mason. So it's an open award for all people who are interested in our craft, who have been working and have published some research and published books. So whether you're a brother or not, you can enter the competition.
And out of curiosity, actually, before I go back to asking the question about like to what extent are your submissions or the Arcana submissions global? Obviously, when you want to advertise this opportunity or promote this opportunity to Masons, it's relatively easy. I mean, nothing's easy, but it's relatively easy because you can send the information to Grand Lodges and you hope that they'll distribute the information to their membership and to the Masons within their jurisdiction. How did you advertise the Arcana Awards to non-Masons, or try to make sure it got in front of people who were not Masons themselves, but maybe had done research or papers or written books that would be, again, that would be eligible or should be considered for a Veritas, for an Arcana Distinction Award?
Well, uh, let me address this question in two parts. The first part is the white papers. The white papers, we rely solely on lodge to lodge communication, Grand Lodge to within the craft. We haven't received any white paper outside the craft, although it is open. But till today, and this is our second edition, we haven't received any. Now, for the second part, I mean, for the published book in Masonic history, because we have two categories, you know, we have the Masonic history books, and then we have the symbolism and ritual philosophy section. So it's another category. We have these two categories. Now, for this, we have a big database of all the published books within those area, and we send invitation directly to the author if he is interested to join. So this is basically how we do it. We go really directly to, or also we have also a database for all publishing house who have published for Masonic work. So we also address our invitation to them. This is basically how we do it. So we are really targeted when it comes to approaching. I mean, when we try to build the submission for each year.
Is there a um, uh, requirement that the white paper, so for the 2025 Distinction Awards, the Arcana Awards, is a requirement that the white paper is published within the year, or can it be something that a Mason or a non-Mason, for that matter, published or wrote 5, 10, 20 years ago? Can they go back and find an older paper they wrote um, that they think is relevant and submit that to the Distinction Awards?
Well, the commission is the commission. The committee is happy to receive within a span years, or let's say within a 5-year span. So everything with 5 or 6. So, but the committee is very flexible on this point. So we're not really rigid on the publishing time, but we prefer that it will go. I mean, it will not stretch more than 5 years.
I'm just thinking, even with this podcast, I've interviewed a few scholars and non-Masons, so non-Masons who are scholars or otherwise authors who've written academic papers related to Freemasonry. Might be worth, maybe next year I'll send them a link and they can submit their work, so you can have some non-Masons, not only in the book category, the published book category, but also in the white paper category. I did an interview with this one, I can't think of her name now, but it's an episode. I'll link it here. She wrote a paper about the economic impact of Masonic lodges in Midwest towns in America. Um, and it was really fascinating. So, And maybe I might know a few. I might know a few scholars and authors who've again published white papers related to Freemasonry or related to Freemasons who are not themselves Freemasons. Maybe I'll send the link next year. Maybe you can get some non-Masons who are at least applying for the white paper category. Because yeah, like you said, and I can imagine just talking to you, the challenge of with books it's a little bit simpler in that the book will have the publishing information and the author's name, and they're going to be more visible. Trying to track down academic papers or research subjects or articles from non-Freemasons, it's going to be a little bit tougher. You're going to have to rely more on word of mouth, I would think. So maybe I'll send it to them though.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
because the so going back to the global reach of the Arcana Awards, what has it been like? Are you receiving submissions from around the world, for either the book category, the white paper category, both? Like, what has been the global reach of, or what is the global reach of Arcana?
Well, we've been receiving from around the globe, I can say, uh, from Africa, from Japan, from Canada, from the whole of Europe, from the Middle East, basically from everywhere. We've have plenty of submission, and all those submissions they go through a certain valuation committee. They go through evaluation committee, then a judging panel that we select each year, and then the books are assessed for the quality of writing, for the depth of research, their originality, their relevance to the craft, and contribution to understanding Freemasonry. White papers are also assessed for quality of research and analysis, originality, relevance, and all of that. So we have a strict, let's say, methodology of evaluation, and the judges are apply a very objective methodology to provide feedback and scoring for all this work.
Excuse me. Out of curiosity, did you get more submissions in either category or both in this year in 2025 than you did in 2024, or was both the same? I'm assuming, it strikes me that again, that first year it's new. You've got to kind of convince people who've never heard of this before, or you got to convince people that this new program can work. Are you finding that the Arcana Awards, from their creation in 2023 through to now, their reputation is growing, kind of both reputation in terms of number of people know about it and positive responses and positive thoughts? What has the reputation been like, and are you seeing it grow in a positive direction?
Well, I'm not sure about the reputation. I can tell you that the awareness we've had throughout these 2 years was amazing. More and more people are excited about this award, and people, as you said, it's a word of mouth thing, and people will invite each other to join. We've seen this on many occasions, so that's really important for us. You see, when people are excited, they tend to advise other people to join, and this is, I mean, this is a big thing for us. Now, we have seen an increase in the submission numbers, if I may say. Like this increase is about 20 to 30%. But let's keep in mind that we are addressing a very restricted part of, uh, it's very targeted. We're only focusing on Masonic books and history books. So we have to play within those boundaries. We are not addressing the whole printing industry. We're just addressing books who were published with subject related to our craft. So we are really concerned with this type of. We're really focused on this area of publishing. So,
Although I think, and this kind of goes to what we were talking about near the start, right? And my white paper, which is nominated or selected as a finalist, obviously there's a narrowness in terms of the focus being on books or white papers that are published or created that connect in some way to Freemasonry or that are about Freemasonry. However, within that kind of limit, it's actually incredibly broad, the number of different things, topics, ideas, philosophies, histories that can apply to Freemasonry, right? And there's a ton of works and a ton of papers I've read, some that I've written, where the author may not even necessarily recognize that there is in fact a Masonic connection, or there can be a Masonic connection to this. I mean, gamification, which is what I wrote about, right? Which is the application of gamification to improve engagement within Masonic meetings and Masonic events, or I should say, to improve engagement from Masonic membership. Right? I'm sure that the person who invented the gamification framework was not thinking of Freemasonry when he created that framework. Um, Nor I'm sure that for most people who, let's say, enjoy playing video games, are not thinking about, why is it that this video game is capable of keeping me engaged? Can we take some of the principles from this video game and apply it to our Masonic meetings? But nonetheless, those things are possible, right? And I guess it's just my way of saying, like, there's probably a lot of papers and a lot of research done that maybe the perspective was on one topic, but with just a slight change of perspective, you could see, and it could be rewritten in such a way that it encompasses Freemasonry and provides lessons or insights or questions that Freemasons can explore. Um, I'm curious, with your work and even with Arcana, are you finding people connecting research to Freemasonry in a way they maybe didn't expect at the start, or in a way that you guys, with Arcana, with the board, didn't expect? Like, I don't know if anybody thought of gamification Freemasonry before my white paper, for example. So I guess, just to what extent do you think Arcana is growing and increasing Masonic perspectives, um, and research, quote unquote, outside of the craft, bringing it into the craft and into Freemasonry?
well, that's our strategic perspective. We're working on that. Uh, it will take some time to reach our goals, but as you said, there are a lot of topics which are not related, and suddenly you see, like you did, Brother Cameron, that you did, bringing this gamification and try to link it to Freemasonry. There are people who focus on other subject like memories, how to deal with the how, and you have others also, which is related to some esoteric philosophies or ancient knowledge, which are also trying to see if there's any connection there. But whenever you see that something that makes logic, so it's obvious, and then because not everything can be linked to Freemasonry, not any idea you can link it to Freemasonry. It has to have a certain backbones. It has to have a certain logic behind it. I say, oh, this makes sense. Okay, so it's a nice idea. Let's explore it more. Let's see how we can handle this in a more constructive way. Now, the idea in itself is to create this conversation worldwide, and to bring people of certain of certain curiosity, of certain knowledge, and try to create this conversation where we all benefit from this universal conversation to help each other to become uh, much more certain as Freemason, much more developed on the intellectual level, and to help to really raise our awareness to higher degrees, to connect more with people, and to be able, at the end of the line, what we're trying to do in our lodges is to help people, help men specifically, to have a different understanding of life, to help people to see life in a different perspective. And life is not all about suffering and running the rat race. Uh, if you try to develop a certain attitude or a certain, let's say, a certain mind frame where you see life will develop in a totally different and much more beautiful way. And when you reach this level, then you can people will come around you and they would love to sit with you and talk to you because you have this resonance, this vibration that attracts people in, that help people evolve in their daily life. At the end of the line, I think Freemasonry is all about developing man to become a better man using the tools that we have in our rituals. So if we don't go deep within the research and within the symbolism of our ritual, then I think that it's a big part of Freemasonry we are missing. If we think that Freemasonry is just a man's club, we do this ritual thing, and then we go have this harmony board where we eat and drink, and that's it. Well, this is part of Freemasonry, but this is not the whole thing, at least to my understanding.
How excited are you, or if you can speak on behalf of Arcana a little bit, how excited do you think the rest of your colleagues and your committee members are for the upcoming awards ceremony taking place in late November in Edinburgh? I cannot wait to attend myself. It's going to be incredible. It's especially special for me because I do have family in Northern England, so I get to see them as well as go to the ceremony. My dad was born and raised in Northern England, then met a Canadian girl, and that's the end of that story. So, mothers mothers lock up your sons, they meet Canadian girls and they move away, they move across the ocean for them. So, but just if you can speak on behalf of the committee members and the board a little bit, or even just for yourself, right? How excited are you for 2025 ceremony, especially since this is the second one? I always find the first one, it's really hard, at least for me, whenever I'm trying a new initiative or program. Um, the first one, I always find it's hard to enjoy because since it's so new, right? You're kind of always putting out fires and there's always unexpected, whatever it is. At least for me personally, I always find in some ways I tend to enjoy the second one more because once you got that first one, you've kind of proven the concept. Now you can focus on improving it and you're not as worried about the unexpected things. But just for you, for the committee, how excited are you guys for what, about 3 weeks away now? Almost less than a month, anyways.
Yeah,
Um,
less than a month. It will be on the 26th of November.
So how excited?
And
How excited are you?
well, pretty excited. It's our second edition, and we're looking for our third edition. We're trying to evolve and to bring in new ideas. For this year, we are going to include a signing ceremony where people can come and meet the author and sign the books, etc. So this is an add-on for this year. And we're very excited really to see all these people, all the brethren coming from all around the world to this ceremony. So it's pretty exciting.
And for the 2026, for the 2026 Awards. When does the application period or submission period, I should say, when will that be taking place if people want to submit works potentially to be considered for 2026, whether it be again within the white paper category or the book category? Do we know when the submission period is open? And
Well, basically, the submission period should open by the end of January 2026. It should be online on our website, Arcana Veritas, and from there on, we'll try to also talk to our jury members, so I'll be ready to receive those submissions. So basically, first of by the end of January.
I will leave a link in the description to this video for the Arcana website. So anybody who is interested in potentially knows a paper or knows somebody who's written a paper or has written a book or knows somebody who's written a book that they think kind of is relevant to and unique and will be a benefit to Freemasonry if more Masons got in touch with it, saw it, read it, or just provides an interesting perspective on it. And we talk about the admission criteria. I'll leave that in the description as well. You'll find that link there. And just to go back to what Brother Roland said, if you're not a Mason, but you've written a paper and you think that paper could be applicable to Freemasonry, you don't need to be a Mason to apply in any of the categories, either book or white paper. I always try because we're coming up near the end of your time, and I appreciate you very much being here. So I don't want to keep you past your time, but I do like to ask this question to all my guests, especially those who are Masons themselves. Kind of the last two questions, and you might have a really interesting perspective from the research side of things and the I guess the research side of things, and a focus on the researching of Freemasonry, both historical context as well as the social and the social sciences context of it. What the first of the questions? What in Freemasonry right now concerns you most? And I know that's a very broad topic, but just generally speaking, is there anything within Freemasonry that you find particularly concerning? And then the second question is there anything within Freemasonry right now that you find particularly promising, and that you think bodes well for the craft? So generally speaking, any concern you may have, and then what you find promising or hopeful.
Well, what I really find promising is that I'm an avid book reader, and specifically when it comes to self-development and the psychology of consciousness and human psychic, and I can tell you one thing, that each and every book that I've read, going back from Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits, right up until today, if you take, those prominent psychologists who are filling the internet today, like Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris, and running through all the motivational book that I've read, they all have source in our craft. All the concepts of self-development, if you read it well, and if you understand very well our ritual, you can see that the source of these concepts are embedded in our ritual and in our craft. The issue is to try to really get this knowledge to our member, to get this knowledge to our brethren through our lodges. And this is where we lack. And this is where we have deficiency. If we try, and this is what we're trying to do under Magnus Geometra, and because, Magnus Geometra started with this idea, how we can have some a vehicle or a template, a platform where we can communicate this information to anyone on any brother who would like to have this type of information. Because not all brethren, let's be honest, not all brethren are attracted by this idea. You have many brethren who are not concerned with this. But I think if we are successful in spreading this knowledge, then people, specifically with the young generation, will understand more Freemasonry, and they will see that it's a beautiful craft. Freemasonry is such a wealth of knowledge and information, which is embedded in our ritual from from ancient knowledge, from thousands of years. All this human knowledge is embedded within our craft. And if you look deep, if you scratch the surface of our ritual, you will automatically be amazed of the wealth of information we have in our lodges. They just need to be digged out and shared within the lodges. So people, they understand really what they are doing in the lodge, what they are doing really, and how really, and in a practical way, we can consume the idea of having good men and make them better. If in our lodges we are not being uh, supportive of this idea on a practical level, I mean, I need to know exactly how we are doing this. How do we transfer men? If the lodges cannot give an answer to that, they are missing out. So this is why Magnus Geometra was built with this idea in mind. And we have many initiatives. One of them is the Arcana Veritas Distinction Awards. And we have many other initiatives. If you go to our website also, you will see. There are a lot of initiatives where we can have discussions, open discussion, and the net has helped a lot in bridging the gaps between us as brethren from all around the world. So,
And it's important to bridge those gaps, right? Because when you're, being a Freemason, one of the best parts of it, if you take advantage of it, and if you know of, and understand what it means, is the fact that we have brothers, or you join Freemason, you now have brothers all around the world. And that's a really special feeling. I think it's something that very often does get overlooked. So, and that's a great thing that Arcana is doing as well, right? Which is, and Manchuetra, but by accepting submissions from around the world, you're kind of demonstrating in a very practical way that Freemasonry, you have brothers everywhere. You have Masons that are like you mentioned, like I have brothers in Japan, I have brothers in Texas, I have brothers in Brazil, I have brothers in Scotland, right? And it's a really beautiful feeling to know that. Actually, I meant to ask earlier, and I don't know if I saw this anywhere on the website. I'm curious for the I guess book or white paper submissions, do they have to be originally published in English, or can they be, let's say, published in whatever the language of the author is and then translated to English? Does that make any difference at all in terms of the language of publication? Or
it's a requirement that I mean, the submission is in English. Whether it
but
is originally published in any language, they have to translate it into English.
Okay, yeah, because I figured, there might be a few works. I'm curious if you maybe got any, which again, the original publication was not in English, but for this mission purposes, it's translated into English. And that'd be really interesting as well, I think, because there'd probably be some really interesting ideas there about even it's interesting, kind of as I'm just talking to you, I think back a few years ago, I worked on some grant application programs for different Masonic buildings. And it's funny how translating the term Freemasonry from English into French, because some of the programs were for French, you had to provide your application in both English and French for the purpose of the grants. It's just interesting the philosophical and linguistic discussions that ended up happening about how do you translate some of these terms. How do you translate Freemasonry from English into French? What's the best way to describe it? That'd be really interesting. I'd be curious to see some of those translations, and what Freemasonry means in one's literal language or one's native language versus. That'd be kind of a cool little. That'd be an interesting paper, actually.
Yeah,
The
Freemasonry, I mean, the ritual have been translated into many languages all around the world. In Arabic, basically, for us here in Lebanon, for instance.
I'd be fascinated to see. I mean, one of
Which,
the not even the ritual itself. Yeah, but what's the? I remember I once was talking to somebody who did translations professionally, and they were saying like it was like for ancient languages they would translate Latin and ancient Greek into English, but they said one of the challenges they had at one point was they had to translate the Latin, and the Latin, what it literally said, if you translated word for word, was, when with wolves howl, was the literal translation. They said, do we translate it as that, or do we translate it as when in Rome, do as the Romans do, which is what it means. So do you
yeah,
translate based on the words? Do you translate based on the meaning? But I just thought of that because, again, just even the word or the title, or I mean, call it what you want. The word Freemason, translating that into French was in and of itself proved a challenge in terms of.
franc-maçon,
Well,
franc-maçon, that's one.
that's what they went with. But then also because it's Canadian, there was this idea of you can translate it as that, or do you translate it as just in parentheses Freemason because the temple was in an English speaking area,
Ah,
and
okay.
so and then there was even somebody else suggested, well, just translate it as we went with that. We went with Franco Mason, but there's also discussion about I forget what the other option was, but there was another option as how to translate it. I can't think of what it was now off the top of my head. We were working with the government because for grants it was coming from the government. So, anyways, yeah, I'd be really curious to know what Freemasonry, how it's translated into Japan, how it's translated into in Japanese, or Spanish. I'd be really curious. But yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure. Do you for the papers that you get? Do you have any? Do you know of where the original publication language was not English, and then you received a translation?
yeah, we had some books in Arabic and some books in Japanese.
That is really cool. If any Japanese brethren are watching this, one of my goals, I really want to have a podcast episode with a brother from Japan because I know very little about Freemasonry in Japan. I'm sad to say. So I understand. I'd like to learn a lot more about it because I understand it's very well respected there. At least a few of my Japanese friends who aren't Masons, when they found out I was a Mason, told me that, oh, you doing all right
Um,
there?
yeah, I'm off the light. I'm sorry.
No worries.
It will come. It
But
will come in 2 minutes. That's one of
I,
the two bricks when you live in Lebanon. So you have the
no worries.
electricity off. I'm sorry for that. You
Cool.
can
No worries.
continue,
Just so long as
right?
you're okay. And my
I'm
computer's okay.
okay.
But
I'm
I
okay.
mean, I do, like I said, your time is limited. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your work, um, both with just your Masonic work in general, as well as your work with Geometra, as well as your work with Arcana, and more in general, just your work promoting to Freemasons, especially a lot of the historical and literary and otherwise output that helps deepen our understanding of Freemasonry, of the craft, and what it means to be a Freemason throughout history, but especially in 2025. So thank you so much for your work. I hope you keep it up because I'm honored to be part of Arcana as a finalist, to be able to say, right, that I contributed in a small way to the vast wealth of Masonic literature, and I'm honored and grateful for you putting in the work to make this possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. And we'll be very glad to have you at Grand Lodge. We're looking forward to have you there.
And with that, we are all finished. Thank you again so much. Stop recording.